Hello and welcome to today's FinTech Finance Virtual Arena, where you're joining me here today. Today, we're going to be talking about Chip, and who better to join me than the co-founder, Simon Rabin. Simon, how are you doing here today?
I'm very well, thanks. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries. Well, it's our pleasure. I'm really excited to learn a bit more about Chip. So without further ado, could you give our viewers who might not be aware a bit of background to yourself and Chip, please?
Sure. So Chip, we're building the savings and investments platform for the mobile generation. I founded the business three and a half years back now. We started off doing open banking powered auto saving and kind of roundups, giving people tools to help them put money away. And over the last couple of years, we've built a community of customers, and we've pivoted our product or evolved our product, I think, in line with that community. And arrive where we are now, which is with about 300,000 savers, having saved over £250 million actually for them. We've got a team of 95 people. We've had a number of incredibly successful equity crowd funds as well. I think we are the second most funded equity, most equity crowd funded company in Europe, and actually got one of the largest investor communities as well, 16,000 people. And going from strength to strength.
Yeah, I mean, having that support and that belief behind you, that must mean so much. So, I mean, speaking of beliefs and putting them into action, then what was the thinking behind Chip? Why did you want to create it?
Sure. I mean, it started off really with a frustration on my own part of me being unable to save, or being really bad at kind of identifying how much money I should put away each month and where I should put it. And the first iteration of the product focused a lot on that with auto saving. But as I said, as we've evolved over the last couple of years, we realized that that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. And beyond that, there is actually, a big question, a big challenge around where do you put your savings? How do you earn the best possible return on them? How do you understand investment funds, risk, and what you should be doing with your non-day-to-day money? And that's a problem experienced by the vast majority of what we call the mobile generation. And we really set out to try and tackle that.
Well, I think it's absolutely critical what you're doing. I mean, we've seen increasingly with people moving their money to mobile and not using cash as much, having that tangible kind of putting money aside almost seems just, a lot of people are quite ambivalent to it until they can start seeing real life kind of putting things into action. So I think it's absolutely brilliant. Now, with that in mind, I've got to ask, as an industry-wide question, why has it taken maybe some of the larger financial institutions so long to kind of tap into this market and realize that 20, 30, 40 somethings actually need to start saving in different ways than were probably done before?
I can give you the slightly cynical answer.
Please, yeah.
You could say, I personally wouldn't say this, but you could say that your bank makes more money from lending money to you, from overdrafts, from fees, from credit card penalties and late fees and so on. And it's not particularly, or hasn't been particularly economically attractive to banks to actually encourage their customers to save. Often the big banks can actually get cheaper sources of funding on the wholesale market, and they frankly would rather see their customers transact using their debit cards, potentially borrow some money from them rather than build money. But I wouldn't say that. That's just what some people say, Doug.
Sure. Well, I'll take it with a pinch of salt. Well, with that in mind, then let's start looking at your product suite and actually how you can help these people action their savings. So, can you tell me up some of the services that you offer within Chip, please?
Sure. So, if you come in and use our basic account, Chip Lite, you can deposit into a range of cash deposits and now investment funds too. We partnered up with one of the leading fund managers in the world, BlackRock, to completely democratize the access to some of their leading investment funds to consumers. And then on top of that, we kind of make the user experience really, really mobile friendly. So You can create goals, you can add images, you can see your progress towards them. We've got, as I said, auto saving, which is a feature that you can turn on, and then every couple of days, our algorithms basically analyze your spending in your connected current account and automatically save an amount of money for you into Chip. If that's not for you, you can set up reoccurring payments with our payday put away feature, or you can just make, as I said, manual deposits as well. And really, as a customer, you can have this experience which is as easy to use, if not easier to use, than your actual banking app, but provides you the market's best returns.
So we've obviously talked about all the various different products that you have. One of the ones that I think is very, very interesting at the moment, especially with lockdown, people have a bit more time on their hands. So we're starting to see a real kind of flourishing and blossoming of retail investment. Can you tell me a bit more about the services that you offer with that, please?
Yeah, sure. I mean, for us, really, it's all about access and giving consumers that access that historically they haven't necessarily had. And if you take sort of, cash savings offerings offered by high street banks, they're actually absolutely abysmal. Yet you have big investment funds, big financial institutions, hedge funds earning incredible returns. And traditionally, that's kind of been blocked, or retail consumers have been denied access to that, or certainly be given limited access to that. And we've seen it actually in the last couple of weeks with what's been going on with GameStop and on Wall Street Bets and so on, whereby retail consumers are actually standing up and saying, we've had enough of this. There's no reason why we as ordinary people can't have access to these same returns, access to these same financial instruments, can't play, if you will, in the market in the same way that the big financial institutions can. And that's something incredibly powerful. And Chip is very much focused on trying to increase that and trying to democratize people's access to far better returns than are being offered in the market at the moment.
I think that's really exciting. The thought of democratizing one of the last bastions of maybe traditional wealth to finally galvanize the whole population when it comes to finance, I think it's absolutely incredible. And I'm excited to see where this will be in a couple of years as it becomes more mainstream.
Well, exactly. I think, our customers have got to ask, why is it that my 1.5% easy access cash account has suddenly dropped down to 0.1% over the last 9 months as a result of the pandemic, yet US markets are up 30% over that same period. What's going on there, and why am I as a consumer being excluded from that? And products like Chip are going to answer that question for people.
I think that's absolutely brilliant. Well, then, looking forward, then, as we've mentioned, it is slightly becoming more mainstream. People are looking at their personal finance and realizing that applications like Chip can offer them services that they previously didn't have access to. So with that in mind, how do you at Chip look to separate yourself from the crowd of new apps coming out, and what really to you sets Chip apart?
Absolutely. I mean, so far, as I said, over the last 3.5 years, we've built a community, 300,000 customers, but 21,000 people in our chipmunk and investor community. And everything we do, the building of the product, evolving of the product, pricing, the product, the individual accounts that we introduce is done hand in hand with that community. And that way of building product and way of building the company has been incredibly successful for us, and creates a really powerful barrier to entry for new incumbents. So somebody else coming into the market is going to find it incredibly difficult to reach that critical mass, and I think to get the buy-in and loyalty and engagement that we see from our community. And I actually forgot the second part of your question, Doug.
Well, it was really just kind of referencing the fact that this is a growing market. There are personal finance apps. They are becoming more, really well known. So I was really just inquiring to you and to you personally.
Sure. I'll give you a view on how I see the market. I think you've got some great products out there. You have to mention free trade in terms of active trading and really trying to democratize that access. Dare I say, a bit like Robin Hood in the US, although they probably wouldn't want me to associate with them right now. But what we haven't seen anywhere near enough of, and what we're going to see a lot more of, is democratization of the access to passive investment products. So the vast majority of people perhaps don't feel comfortable actively stock trading, don't feel knowledgeable enough in that space to be doing that themselves, but do want to have their money in a place that earns them a decent return, far better than what their bank's giving them. And Chip is very much focused on that part, which interestingly, with all the innovation in fintech, we haven't seen much activity to date. And now we're kind of starting to see those, if you will, those sort of green buds coming through, where you're getting democratization of access to capital markets, to passive investments. And I think this is really going to be that third wave of fintech, and Chip very much at the forefront of it.
It's absolutely excellent to hear. So, speaking of that third wave, we've had that kind of the open banking wave where everyone was talking about opening up their payments, PSD2. We're now starting to talk about open finance. Mm-hmm. Do you think that some of the promises that were laid down by open banking that maybe weren't fulfilled will start to be actioned in the 20s?
Yes, I do think we're going to see a lot more innovation through open finance. It's very much going to be the future of banking and payments and infrastructure, but it has been painfully slow. Yeah. When we sort of built the first version and we were trying to use open banking, or a version of it in 2016, all these things were promised. We're still at this point, there's still some issues, with it. And now we're seeing the same with payment initiation services, where they are there, but there's quite a few limitations on what we're able to do. My general view on it is it absolutely needs to happen. It absolutely will happen, but the pace hasn't been quick enough, and I feel will continue to be quite slow.
Okay, interesting. Well, you've mentioned as well being a kind of chipmunk. Can you tell me a bit more what that offers your customers?
Absolutely. Well, if you are a saver with Chip, you can join our chipmunk community. And what that really means is, on a practical basis, joining a forum, joining a Facebook group, getting a little chipmunk badge, and I think sometimes a pair of socks as well, and playing an active role in the development of the product. So I certainly encourage all the functions across the business, from marketing to product, commercial, finance, design, to try and engage with our chipmunk community as much as they possibly can. So it might be something like the design team are looking at a couple of screen options for a new flow, and they actually put it out to the community and say, hey, which one do you guys think is best? Vote by emoji, and you'll get an answer from several hundred people within an afternoon. It's a fantastic way to kind of litmus test what people think.
I think that's
you also, and you also get, as I said, with finance and with pricing, we're doing something at the moment where we're introducing a new paid tier, and we are pretty much working hand in hand with our community to decide how we're going to price that, what's going to be included in it. And what we've seen from a business perspective is when you do engage your customers, when you do engage the community, and they're very much part of that process up front, they're far more excited and far more willing to, if you will, to buy and to use the product that they've been a part of developing. Yeah. So if you haven't joined the chipmunk community, I strongly recommend that you do.
Well, I think that's such a brilliant model to use. Is if you're completely mobile, you're completely digital, why not embrace the community? And it's excellent to hear finance is doing that, where typically you would have reserved that maybe to entertainment sectors. So I think that kind of bringing in the human element and actually actioning it is brilliant.
Yeah, well, we've got some super fans at Chip. There's some people on our forums who we kind of know on a first name basis, almost feel part of the team. And in some occasions speak with on daily basis. So I guess it's like having groupies or super fans.
Well, and they're the ones that when they don't comment, you actually have to wonder why. So that's absolutely excellent. And speaking of that community, then by being a digital platform, you can probably have a very quite a wealth of data on your customers. And I think that'd be really interesting to hear from you if there were any kind of statistics of maybe your customers, or statistics of how they used the product suite that really kind of shocked you, or maybe inspired you to move into a different direction you once hadn't thought of.
Well, as I said, the volume of customers that we now have and the amounts of money that they're saving are really incredible. I think last month we brought in 35 million pound of new deposits, which is a record for us. So it is amazing kind of see that was about over £1 million a day kind of coming through the system. And the vast majority of these transactions are under £20. And they are, normal everyday people using Chip to actually put that money away, which is incredible. The thing that we hear the most about from our community is returns, is that people want to be able to earn a return. They're not necessarily, they're not asking for the world, right? They don't need 20%, 25% return per annum. People just want to beat inflation. They want to feel that if they're leaving their savings in a place that's going to grow in the kind of medium to long term. And we at Chip, as I said, doing everything we can to try and offer that to customers and give them access to those best possible returns.
Amazing. Well, as someone that is quite lazy myself, the thought of lazy money it really resonates with me quite strongly. So, if we could wrap up, then there's a lot of movements in the industry, as you said. We've talked about open finance coming in, and in this decade. So, what is the future for Chip?
Oh, the future for Chip is to be the global savings and investments platform for the mobile generation. I want to see hundreds of millions of people across the UK, Europe, and beyond that, with Chip on their mobile phones. It be the go-to place for them to save, invest, manage their money, and eventually kind of leverage that joint community power to buy insurance and access all sorts of financial services.
Well, Simon, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for kind of enlightening me about the whole process behind Chip. I hope you've had a good time yourself.
Absolutely. It's been the best Zoom of the day.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much. And thank you as well to all our viewers. You can catch the rest of the series and much more over at www.fintechf.com, and of course, YouTube and LinkedIn. So thanks very much, and I'll see you soon. Goodbye.